Oh, go. You're live.
Am I live?
Yeah.
Hi, everybody. It's Courtney Cooper, and it's Training Tip Tuesday. It's a little cold and dreary here, and we're a little bit tired and worn out. Anyway, I am here today. I'm a 5-star rider and the owner of Sea Spur Farm and a partner in Excel Star Sport Horses. And today we're going to talk about shopping for horses, looking for horses in the off season, selling your horse, anything having to do with the sales process from both ends. So please, if you have questions, let us know what they are. We've had some people write in and message us about questions and things that are on their mind, and we would love to hear what you have to say as well. We have our spokes dog here, our little spokes dog, Theodore. You can see he's really not too stressed out about these things. And then, of course, his friend Flower. So, anyway, first off, a lot of people find that when the weather turns and it gets cold and dreary and damp and raining, they don't want to ride. Surprising. And some of us don't have indoors, so it gets even harder. So, what do we end up doing? Well, we end up looking on the internet. We go to Facebook, and we go to Sport Horse Nation, and maybe we go to Train Horse or Horses for Your Consideration. There are a plethora of websites that you can find horses for sale in. So, where do we go? Where do we advertise? Sport Horse Nation, we do our Major League Eventing is a good podcast. Hold on one second.
We are moving the octopus.
Moving the dog.
We
toy.
can't.
Sorry, there is a little bit of dog roughhousing going on in the background. Anyway, so we advertise on a bunch of different sites, including Major League Eventing, Horses for Your Consideration, Area 2 and Area 3, eventing horses for sale in the U.S., a lot of different sites. Anyway, so you can look there, and then you can also look on people's personal pages. I know that there usually are a lot of professionals who sell a couple of horses, 10, 15 horses a year. We sell a lot of horses. We have good friends in Aiken that do a good business. Pippa Moon does a really good business down there. So you want to use a good professional. A lot of times people have asked me to be their sales agent and what that encompasses and why you should use an agent versus not use an agent. You should have someone helping you. You should have someone, either a trainer or an outside professional, really looking to help you and act in your best interests. Because a lot of times we all get excited about the horses. It's sort of like dating. If you can remember back to dating, I'm looking at having my 20th wedding anniversary tomorrow. So dating's been a long time ago. But when you started dating, it was all rose-colored glasses and, oh, I'll do anything for you, and everything was perfect and wonderful. And that's a little bit how it is sometimes when you look for horses, that everything is great, and maybe you don't notice that the horse toes in, or that it's in a Mylar bit to go cross-country, or it's wearing heart bars and it's 4, or any of those things. And so you want someone who will sort of notice those things and bring them out to you. And some of those things might not be deal breakers at all, and other times they might be. So first and foremost, I'm a huge proponent of having an agent, either a trainer or sales agent, to go with you. It's cheap money in my book. Also, if you go with a reputable sales agent or your trainer, let's say it doesn't work out, then they will also help you on the backside to sell the horse and be committed to helping you find that horse a more suitable home. So that's first and foremost. Do we have any questions?
Not yet, no.
Okay, super. Well, you guys make sure you ask us any questions you might have. Just throw it in the comments. We'd also love to find out where you're watching from. So if you'll let us know that as well, that'd be great. Someone asked, well, how do you know when you should sell your horse? And the answer is that's really only a question that you can answer. There are so many reasons that horses get sold. Sometimes they aren't staying sound for the job they're intended to be, and they need to have an easier, quieter job, and they'll be happier doing that job. Sometimes the person has more ambition than the horse, and if that's the case, then, you know, again, you run into the problem that, you know, perhaps the horse needs an easier job. Sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes the horse has more ambition than the person does, and so the horse needs a new person so that they can rise up the levels or do things. One thing I would tell you to caution you against is don't personify your horse. Don't think, oh, my horse needs to be sold because I'm not going to the shows and, you know, he really wants to go to the shows. Horses want basically three things. They want to be fed, they want somewhere warm and dry to sleep, and they want to be safe. And so if that's the case, none of those things require you to put them on a trailer and take them to horse shows. That's really something that we enjoy doing, and the horses enjoy doing it. Don't you know, I wouldn't say that they don't, but they don't have to do it for a living. And I think most of the retired horses that I know would tell you that they're just happy out in their fields being horses. So don't personify them, and don't feel like you have to get rid of a horse because, you know, you're having some different things go on in your life, be it children or a career change that might be temporary. So that's one thing. How else do you know if you need to sell a horse? If you've given it a try and it's just not working. You know, I would also tell you that if you're an adult amateur or a junior, and that's our market, basically, and you've sort of given something a try and it hasn't worked, and by a try, I mean maybe you've worked with your trainer, and, you know, you've gone 6-12 months and you haven't really found that something is changing, then maybe it is a time for change, and maybe you can test that by leasing another horse before you sell your horse and see what you think. But there should be joy in your riding. You know, the majority of people are not professionals and don't have to ride horses that, for one reason or another, they need to work through. And so you really want to do it because you enjoy it and you love it. And so if you are having trouble finding the joy, really look at that as well. So how do you find your new partner? Like I said, professionals. Now Flower's making her own bed. So anyway, how do you... It's always something on Training Tip Tuesday.
These damn dogs.
You can be guaranteed. And if we lock them out, then they're not happy either. Anyway, so, anyway, long story short. So how do you go about finding those horses? You can, using your professional, or if you don't want to do the legwork yourself, you can go to the internet and you can look at the ads. And when you look at ads, you know, obviously there are some ads that will speak to you more than others. So you want to make sure that you understand sort of what's being said behind the words. A lot of times you'll see that, you know, people are quite upfront and they'll say that a horse needs to be in a regular program. In fact, I saw one ad today and it said that the horse needed to be in a regular program 5 to 6 days a week, needed a trainer ride once a week, and needed its hocks done twice a year. So with that in mind, I thought that was a very good ad, and obviously the horse has some things that, you know, it needs to have work to work it out. So I like seeing, you know, unedited videos. A lot of times people won't put unedited videos on ads, which I can appreciate and understand. But I think if you do an unedited video, even if you send it after the fact, it'll show sort of, oh, the horse had a rail. It's fine to have a rail. Horses have rails. But what do they do after the fact once they have the rail? Do they scoot off? Do they get more careful? Do they get a little backed off? What do they do? And it's obviously going to have an impact on what you do and who you're looking for as a client as well. So there's that. So let's say you like the ad, you like the video, you contact the person. Hopefully they contact you back. I've heard a lot of horror stories about people not being contacted back. I think if you're in the market for a horse and the people aren't contacted you back, move on, go on to another one. Sometimes, life gets in the way. We're all busy, and perhaps there are things you don't know that are going on. But in general, I think most people who have horses for sale are pretty good about getting back. And if they aren't, it's because the horse has been sold or there's something going on that's a little bit out of their control. So having said all of that, now you're corresponding with the agent who has the horse or the owner. Some of the things I like to know are, why is the horse for sale? What's it been doing? What's its current workload? If it's in a professional program, if it goes to an amateur, what they think will happen, or a junior, if that's what I'm looking for. If it's a young horse, how difficult was it to start? Is it good off property? All of those things. Do we have any questions?
Not yet, no.
Okay. Still looking for questions, guys. Please feel free to make this interactive. So you have all of those answers. I also like to see some confirmation shots. Sometimes before I will go and see a horse, depending on how far away the horse is. We're lucky here, we live in the mid-Atlantic, and so there are a lot of horses around us to go and look at. But if I lived, let's say, in the Midwest and I had to travel 3 or 4 hours to go see a horse, it's a long drive, and so I'd like as much information before I get there. And then speaking on that, let's briefly touch on vet records. I certainly don't expect a seller to release vet records for me before I go and see the horse, but I would like to know what sort of maintenance the horse is under, or what sort of issues the horse has had prior. It may be that the horse had a bowed tendon 3 years ago and has come back and has worked. And sometimes you can find that out by looking at the horse's record and then asking them, has the horse had any breaks in its competition history? And so if that's the case, you want to know why the horse had a break in its history. But before you go and make the trip, again, if it's a long trip, you'd like to know, has the horse had any large health issues? Does the horse need any regular maintenance? Is the horse in any special shoes? And then I also ask about any vices. I've had lots of boarders who board at places where they won't take cribbers. It's not a problem for us here, but it is a problem sometimes for boarding barns, and so that if someone's a cribber, then that's sometimes a no-go. So now you have scoured the ads, looked at the videos, fallen in love or in deep lust. You've got someone to go with you, even if it's just a friend, to be a neutral sort of third party. And you're off to go see the horse. And schedule a time, go and see the horse. I will tell you, I have read story after story about people who are like, oh, show up early, see what they do with the horse. If you're dealing with someone reputable, usually they're busy, and it throws a wrench into the schedule to sort of show up an hour early. 15 minutes, totally fine. But if you have a feeling that someone isn't on the up and up with you about the horse, then I would prefer not to do business with them rather than trying to catch them out. And so I would sort of have you rethink that strategy of showing up early to see if you can catch someone in, doing something with the horse. Again, most people are going to be very forthright on the animal, so I think that's important. So you show up. I like to see the horse be brushed and saddled. Sometimes horses will have, idiosyncrasies when they're being tacked up. Again, in a professional barn, in terms of tacking and untacking and cross ties and all of those things, it doesn't usually make a big difference. But if you are a new mom and let's say you have a toddler or a 5-year-old or a 7-year-old or a 10-year-old who comes to the barn with you and you've got a horse that snaps when it's being girthed, again, not a deal breaker, especially if the horse is really good under saddle. But you need to know that because that's going to be a management issue for you. And some people are going to be concerned about that with small children that they take to the barn. If you've got a horse that doesn't stand well in the cross ties, do you have a setup where you can cross tie them in a run-in? You know, I have some clients who work straight out of their fields. And so, you know, what do you do for, you know, tacking up a horse and grooming? So you sort of need to know those things as well. So having done all of those things, and it gives you a chance to see the horse, to talk to the person representing the horse, and to lift the horse's legs. And if you want, pick up the horse's feet or run your hands down their legs. But at that point, I don't really spend a lot of time on sussing out physical attributes per se. I just get a general impression of I like the horse, I don't like the horse. Then you're off to ride it, the horse. And so always have someone else ride it before you ride it. That is just a big safety number one for me. And I really want to make sure that everybody stays safe in this process. And so when you go and see them on a mounting block and see if they stand for mounting block, again, dealing with juniors and adult amateurs, you want to make sure that the horse stands at the mounting block, that it doesn't walk off, that it doesn't isn't cold back or anything along those lines. Do we have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay. Has anybody told us where they're calling from?
Not yet, no.
It's been very quiet today.
Very quiet day.
You guys, come on, let us know what you're doing. So anyway, then a little walk, trot, canter. Depending on how much experience you're looking at, obviously if I'm looking at a 3-star horse, I'd like to see some more detailed flat work, some shoulder and some haunches and some half pass. Same thing with the dressage prospect. I want to see, you know, the level they're working to. And then some jumping. Again, depending on what my client is looking to do with the horse, I might want to have them you know, jump 2 feet. I might want to have them trot some fences. I might want to see them float the reins down to them. I want to see them jump bigger. You just sort of base that based on what you're going there for. If it's a young horse, I won't jump the socks off the horse. You know, like I won't try to jump it bigger and bigger and bigger. You can get a sense of what the horse's scope is by just what their technique is and how careful they are. I sort of like to see when happy accidents occur. You know, when someone has a rail or a bad distance, you know, what does the horse do? And how kind are they dealing with that? We have a question.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God, we have a question.
It's happened. If you have a young, inexperienced horse, what would you do to increase its value to sell it in the future?
If I have a young, inexperienced horse, the best thing I can tell you is to get some good training on it. It depends how young the horse is. If it's a 3-year-old or younger, obviously it's going to be difficult to put many miles on the horse because of their age. In which case, I would say my European counterparts are brilliant at free jumping and showing free jump videos. So that's one way you can increase their values. If you've got a 4-year-old, there's nothing to say that you can't be riding your 4-year-olds 5 days a week. We're big believers in that here. We certainly give our horses time off during the winter and the summer so that they have a break. But get your horse out, get it riding well. It doesn't have to necessarily be doing all sorts of crazy things, but it has to be doing what it knows well. So if you can teach it to, you know, have a good walk-trot transition, a good trot-walk transition, and a good canter depart where it doesn't throw its head, and teach it to trail ride well with its friends or out by itself, or pop over a log. Those are all things that will go a long way. I know that for me, selling horses, attitude is almost always the number one criteria for people, and whether or not the horses have a good attitude and are positive in what they want to do for their people. Athletic ability is usually second by far, and so I would ask you, if you have a young horse, to train it well. Spend some time with it. Make sure it stands in the cross ties. Make sure it's good to be groomed. Teach it to pull its mane. Teach it to be handled and to pick up its feet. Teach it to stand at the mounting block. Something as easy as that can make a huge difference to someone in terms of value. Because, believe it or not, a majority of the riding accidents, if you talk to emergency room physicians, happen when people are getting on and off horses. So that's a huge deal to people. I hope that answered your question. If not, feel free to write back more. And we welcome anybody else's questions. So before you get on, again, it depends on who's come with you and what you're looking for. Sometimes the professional should have a sit on the horse. Sometimes the friend will have a ride on the horse. Sometimes I'll get on, and if it's for, again, let's say an older adult amateur, I'll be slightly sloppy in the way I get on, in terms of, if and I will talk to the agent or the owner before I get on and do anything like this. But I'll say, look, I'm just gonna, be a little bit, less than accurate with my leg when I get on, and because you want to know, is the horse going to tolerate all those things before you get on, and so you want to have like a long rein, or you want to make sure that you sort of, maybe, this sounds bad, but dig your toe a little bit into its side. All the things that sometimes we do when we're just learning to ride, and where you lose your balance, and so you want to do all of those things, and you want to make sure when you get on, again, depending on who you're looking for, that you can adjust your balance on the horse, and that you don't feel like the horse is a bit of a ticking time bomb. Again, using a professional or an agent at this point really can be very supportive to your ultimate goal of finding a new mount, because a lot of times they'll be like, not really sure about this one, or they can say feels great, or whatever. So that's important. And then we'll do a little walk, trot, canter, and jump the horse, and as long as everything feels good, then I'll put my client up on the horse. Sometimes if I know the agent or the owner, or I know the horse, which is oftentimes the case, I'll put my client straight up after we've been shown the horse, and let them get a feel for the horse and the animal, so that they can have a sense. And I would say, the first thing I always want people to do is make sure that they have brakes. So at the walk, make sure you can halt the horse. Make sure that you can have a conversation with the horse. Make sure that, everybody's on the same page, and then move forward and go from there. So after you've ridden the horse, a little walk, trot, canter, maybe you walk the horse around the property. Then if you like the horse, what I would tell you to do is, I would tell you to spend some time again with the horse back in the barn. Maybe you untack the horse. Maybe you take the horse out for a graze after it's been bathed or taken care of or brushed, so you can handle the horse. For some people, that's not a huge big deal. For other people, it's a major deal. So those are, again, personal preference things. And then I always, in a perfect world, like to come back and see the horse again, and have my client ride the horse by themselves the first time, so that the horse hasn't been prepared in any such way, and so you can see what the horse is going to do, sort of cold turkey with the client, because I think that will tell you a lot about sort of the ins and outs of the horse and what's important. And then, assuming all of that goes well, and now you're prepared to make an offer, some people will take an offer, some people won't. Some people will say, my price is X dollars, and that's what we want. Sometimes people have, some cushion built in. Most people, I always do my job as the agent, either side of the agenting business, is if someone wants to buy a horse and I want to sell a horse, or I want to buy the horse, is to get the job done. And so, I will talk to the other party and we'll see what we can get done. It is filled with a lot of emotion, and again, a great reason to use a trainer, a friend, an agent, because they're worth their money here, because there's so much emotion tied up with these animals. And I know, for example, when I have one of my personal horses for sale, it's always more challenging than when I'm representing a horse that we have here for sale, because I've, if it's one we've bred and we've raised, we have a lot of time, energy, and effort, and we just want that horse to be valued and loved as much as we have loved the animal ourselves. And so, for someone to tell us it's not worth what we think it's worth, sometimes it's a hard pill to swallow. But again, the way you price your horses, I said this before, but really it's based on a couple of factors: the age of the horse, the height, the sex, experience and potential, and then the rideability. And so, you may think your horse is worth $35,000, and someone else may think your horse is worth $15,000, and someone else may think your horse is worth $50,000. And it really depends on what that horse's job is and where that person who's buying it feels like it fits, and what their budget is, and so many factors. And so you can really only control what you can control. And so from an agenting or an offer standpoint, I would tell you to be realistic, and to talk through the process with the other person representing the horse or the client, and then hopefully you can come to terms. One thing that is super important for me, and that I am very serious about, is getting vet records, especially on horses here in the States. Most of the horses I buy overseas are young and they've never seen a vet, except for maybe shots, but even then, most of the people I buy from do their own shots. But the horses here, let's say you're buying a 10-year-old that's been eventing training level and been jumping in the meter classes, that horse has probably been seen for something. And, again, we all get busy and we all have things happen in our lives and we forget. And so it's very easy these days. Everybody is computerized. Well, almost everybody's computerized, I should say. And they can call the vet clinics and very easily say, could you send all of the vet records for Gwendolyn to Courtney Cooper? Here's her email. And then go from there. And you just want to make sure, from a practical standpoint, that you walk through the records and you look at the record dates. You don't want to go from January 2017 to November of 2019, because the likelihood is something happened between 2017 and 2019. Shots happen in this country. We take Cogginses once a year, so definitely they'd have to be done by a veterinarian, so that would be on the records. So you just want to make sure that you have a complete set of records. Oftentimes you might be lucky enough, if you're buying a resale horse, to be able to get some imaging that's been done by a previous buyer for their pre-purchases, and so those are always nice to have a baseline. And also, it may show you something that the horse has, and then the question becomes, can you live with it or not? Maybe save you some money there. But that's one of those things that I think is real important. I have had sellers tell me that they will not give me vet records, and at that point, you have to be willing to walk away. And I have walked away, and I think that's just where the industry needs to go. That's my personal opinion. I know that sometimes I'm in the minority on that, but I think both for the horses, future performance and for the buyer's satisfaction. We all need to know what's made the horse, you know, how the horse has gotten where it is and how to best keep that horse sound and healthy and happy and to move forward. So that's my 2 cents. Any other questions right now?
Nope.
No other questions. I also got a question about how do you choose a young horse versus an old horse? And a little bit of that is based on how much mileage do you want to have? And that is driven, you know, obviously by the horse's age. Obviously, a 4-year-old can't have much mileage. A 10-year-old can have a lot of mileage or can not have a lot of mileage. And so you just need to be able to pull up the records. I think one of the best things that US Eventing has ever done is to keep records from the horses their entire career. So starting at beginner novice, it used to be years ago, and I'm dating myself, that we only kept records for horses from preliminary on, but now you can go back and you can look and see their records. So I think that's real important. The other thing is, I know a lot of young people who might be watching are super good at the internet, and so they can stalk the horses and see, you know, if the people did a lot of unrecognized, they can find the unrecognized results if those are on there as well. So there's that. So finding out sort of what their competition history is. If I've got a horse, let's say that's 6, and I've got a horse that's 10, and they've got the same mileage, would I choose a 10-year-old over the 6-year-old? Really depends on all the other factors. You know, what's the rideability? What's the health of the horse? You know, is it a mare versus a gelding? Is there something I particularly like about one or the other? I would imagine if they have the same mileage, the 6-year-old is going to be more expensive than the 10-year-old just because they have 4 more years to go in their life and their competitive experience. So that's how I would determine whether or not to go with young or old. I will tell you, I've also had clients who have come to me and they've been looking for example, I have one very good friend and client who came to me looking for a preliminary packer, sort of had the budget for a preliminary packer, but all the ones that we found sort of didn't check the important boxes for her. And so she came back and said, well, what do you think about buying, you know, a young horse and me developing it? And you know, we talked about the pros and cons. Again, a good reason to use your trainer or a friend as a sounding board or an agent because they can sort of walk you through the pros and cons of that. And so she bought a young horse and she's been very happy, but that's a very different journey than buying a horse that has mileage that can teach you and put you in a very confident position. So that's sort of the sales process and the buying process in terms of how do you look for a horse for sale. How do you sell your horse? How do you go about it? In brief, have good pictures. You know, make sure your horse is clean and tidy. Like I said, it's like dating. And because of that, you want your horse to look like, you know, he's going to a show and he's properly tidy, and stand him up in a clean bridle and take some good confirmation photos or get some good photos taken by a friend. You know, all of us right now have iPhones, and so, you know, you can do a screenshot off a video pretty easily and get a good picture, and so that's important. I would also say, you know, if you want to start without spending a lot of money, you can start by doing Facebook and putting them on different groups and see what you get. Right now, the market is still very strong. It was very strong during the height of COVID, and that's sort of carried on. I'd say it's slightly less strong than it was, you know, a year ago, but still very, very strong. We're going to end up, you know, selling more horses this year than we ever have. So there's that. Then the other thing is to get a good video. Like I mentioned before, I like unedited unedited videos, ideally competition videos, because I think it helps buyers see what the horses do in a competition setting. A lot of times for me, for young horses, I don't have competition videos. They haven't been out yet. And so I will do clips. And then if I have people inquire about a certain horse, I'll ask them what they're looking for. Sometimes they're looking for an event horse. Sometimes they're looking for a hunter or a jumper. And so obviously for those videos, I'll sort of tailor those to them directly. So that's important to ask and to find out, you know, sort of what your customer is looking for, because obviously if your customer is looking for a hunter and you put the horse in a second level dressage frame, they're sort of going to be scratching their head about whether or not they think the horse could do the job. So that's important to know what job you're trying to advertise for. And sometimes the horse can do both jobs. The other thing is to be realistic on price point. And again, you can talk to people in the industry, you can talk to friends, you can look at what similar horses are going for. It's always hard to compare prices, because you get prices on Facebook and you say, oh wow, that horse went for X amount of dollars because it got sold. But at the end of the day, you're not really sure what the horse went for, because even though it was advertised for, let's say, $70,000, it might have sold for $35,000 because of a number of different factors. You know, the owner might needed to get it sold. There might have been an issue on the vetting. They might have been offered less and decided to take it because they wanted to sell the horse before winter. Any of those things. I will tell you, for me, November and December tends to be a very busy time because people have stopped showing and competing, and so they're available. And so from a standpoint of trying to get your horse sold, I think it's always helpful to do that. I help sell a lot of horses this year, so don't be afraid to put your horse with an agent, a consignment agent. There are reputable people who do this for a living. There are, like in every other business, people that do take advantage of the situation. So make sure that you ask for references. I think it's really important to have a contract in writing to know what any sort of fees are going to be charged, any sort of commissions are going to be taken. Also, for the bill of sale, both on the selling side and the buying side, I think it's very important to have the buyer and the seller sign it with all commissions divulged. And so if your agent says, oh, I can just sign for you on the bill of sale, you want to make sure that you sign it so that you know that everything about the sale is true and factual. So I think that is a very brief synopsis on sort of buying and selling. We did actually have, now that I remember it, someone asked me about going overseas and what's involved in that. How do you do that? Do you buy horses off of videos? We did get that question. We at Excel Stars Sport Horses do sell a lot of horses off of videos. We will back our horses, and if people aren't happy with them on videos, we have swapped them out and we have sold them for them, and we're happy to talk to people about that. And so in terms of buying horses off of videos, especially from overseas, my caveat to people is always make sure that there's an agent in the States. Make sure that there is a connection in the U.S., that if things go sideways for you, that you have an ability to talk to someone here, because I have had friends who have bought horses from Holland and from Germany off of video, and the horse wasn't as advertised when it got here, and they assured me that everything was taken care of. They had asked for my advice, and the horse got here and it just wasn't what they thought it was. And by that point, you've sunk not only the purchase price of the horse, but somewhere around another $12,000 to $15,000 if it's a mare, into getting the horse here. And so you're between a rock and a hard place trying to get that money back, because now the horse is here, the owner and the agent are in a foreign country, you know, 5, 6, 7 hours time difference, and you just might have lost your money. And I have, like I said, I have had that happen, and so I would very much tell you to have a representative here that can help you if things go sideways, sell the horse, or take care of you a little bit. When you buy a horse from overseas, I like to see it doing what it's supposedly able to do: flat work, show jumping, cross country. If it can go to a show and you can get show video, fantastic. A lot of times that's not possible. I also like to get confirmation shots and leg shots because sometimes, for example, we in the Mid-Atlantic in the summer have super hard ground. And so I tend not to buy horses that have low heels or shelly feet because it can become a bit of a nightmare in the summer. And especially in Ireland, for example, it's wet and the footing is almost always great. And so they get here, and if they have low heels and shelly feet, you can have a real problem. And so I like to see what the horse's feet look like. And it's expectations. It's, you know, what are your expectations of the horse, and what do you expect the horse to look like? And so you want to make sure that your expectation and their expectations are the same. As for going overseas, obviously I've been doing that for a long time. My first horse that I bought overseas, Tag's mother, one of the first that I bought, is 28 now, and I bought her when she was 4, so I've been doing this off and on for 24 years. Things have changed. But again, the most important thing I do is work with reputable people. I have partners there who act as my agents, for lack of a better word, and we work together to find horses. And again, you know, they started out as agents, now they're friends, and we're partners and on horses. And you know, but use a good agent over there because they will know, you know, the horses to avoid or the horses to go and look at, the breeding, the bloodlines, what's fashionable, but maybe not necessarily what you want to have as an amateur or as a junior, or what's a little bit challenging to train. All of those things, they'll know those things, and so those are important things. If you go to a foreign country where you don't speak the language, for example, Germany or France, you want to make sure that you have a very good bilingual agent because they're really going to need to take care of you. There's a lot of slang in the equine industry, and so you want to make sure that your agent, again, based on expectations, you know, knows exactly what you're looking for, and so you don't get a horse home that maybe is very good in the show jumping arena, but then is a nightmare to take out hacking, or doesn't like cows, or doesn't stand in the cross ties, or isn't good to come in out of the field. All of those things that sometimes are a big deal for those of us here. You know, a lot of times horses in Europe, for example, don't get a lot of turnout time, so sometimes some of them are very challenging to get in out of the field. And so here I know a lot of people will have property and they'll work their horses out of the field in terms of, you know, they don't necessarily have a barn and a stall. And so if that's your situation, you've got a horse that's a terror to get in, and you've got an hour every day to ride that horse, and it takes you half an hour or 45 minutes to catch the animal, that sort of will take the fun out of it very quickly. So anyway, so those are some hints. We are actually going to Ireland a couple times in November and December. So if someone is interested in talking to us about those trips or other trips that they'd like to take, we're happy to talk to them. If you have any other questions about sales agenting or consignment agenting, please let us know. We'd be happy to help. If you have any other general questions, put them down in the notes sections, and I'll get a reminder and I will answer them. But that's Training Tip Tuesday for today. Next week, I don't know what we're going to be doing, but someone's asking a question on my phone. So please feel free to write us with any questions that you have. If you have any suggestions for things that we should do in the future, please let us know. We hope you guys have a great week, and the sun is shining wherever you are, and we'll leave it at that. So talk to you later. Bye-bye.